Bais Iyar, and it's the day of the Rebbe MaHaRash's birthday. And Yomim Elu Niskarim V'Nasim. These are the days that are remembered, and therefore they are done. So when we remember it and we take note of this date, then there could be the concept of V'Nasim, that we actually come to do something connected with this day of Bais Iyar, which is the Rebbe MaHaRash's birthday, which was a Nasi B'Yisrael, and to take note of some of the details of his life, how we can apply for ourselves today based on what the Rebbe spoke throughout the years. The early finding from Tafshin Yud Aleph, there was a Chassid by the name of Itcher Golden who would write many letters to Australia of what's going on in 770. In one of those letters that they found in Australia, he writes there how those years the Rebbe was very involved, that the young Bachrim and the young Galite should go out and Chazach Chassidus into the shuls nearby. There was this one particular Chassid, Bacher, Balabas, who for some reason didn't go. And the Rebbe was pushing him to go speak and to Chazach Chassidus. He gave all his reasons why he can't go. And then the Rebbe told him that you could do like what the Rebbe MaHaRash did. The Rebbe MaHaRash was his Chazach Chassidus, and even if no one came by to Chazach Chassidus, the Rebbe MaHaRash would set up the chairs in front of him, and he would say, "Da sitzt der Radatz, da sitzt der Ashbatz," and he said in front of them Chassidus, empty chairs. It's apropos for our time that we're sitting from far and speaking. The Rebbe continued saying to this Chassid that don't worry, the Ashbatz and the Radatz are not coming to listen to you to hear what you have to say, but you have to know that you have to Chazach Chassidus. Not this week, then the next week. Regarding the Rebbe MaHaRash, we find with the Rebbe something very unusual. Not to have an explanation for it, but the Rebbe spoke with the Rebbe MaHaRash, compared to the other Rebbeim, in an interesting way, different than all the other Rebbeim. First, we find that in Tafshin Zayin, the Rebbe already made a kuntris of a Sefer HaToldos, a gathering, a compilation of sichos and letters from the Frierdiker Rebbe about the Rebbe MaHaRash, which he didn't do, or at least didn't give to print, as the other Rebbeim. And Rabbi Glitzenstein, which he was in charge of making the Sefer HaToldos of all the Rebbeim, the Rebbe already told him that he already made his, and you could add on when the time comes. Another interesting thing we find, that throughout the years when the Rebbe would say stories, there was particular two stories that every time the Rebbe said these stories, the Rebbe would choke up from emotion, almost crying, and not able to continue saying the story. There was one famous one, which the Tzemach Tzedek was once gave a bracha to a chassid, or advice in business. And because of this, either the bracha that gave him the wealth, or the eitzah gave him good advice, and he made a lot of money. In any case, he felt as Hakar Satoiv to give back to Tzemach Tzedek. He bought for the Tzemach Tzedek shlitten, calls it sleds, for the Tzemach Tzedek. And the Tzemach Tzedek said he doesn't need it, and he should go and he should give it to the Rebbe MaHaRash. Over there, when the Rebbe mentioned the Sikha, this story, the Rebbe explained and asked, why is it that the Tzemach Tzedek didn't need it, and he had to go and give it to the Rebbe MaHaRash? If it's something which is considered moisres, extra, unneeded, unnecessary things, he could have went and not take it at all? Why did he need to go and give it over and say that this doesn't belong to him? This is something that belongs, it should be given to the Rebbe MaHaRash. The Rebbe explains there that the Rebbe MaHaRash Anhage, his whole life, his whole way was in a way of Halchatchila Ariber. His way of living was in his pashas, which that was at that time needed, especially that the Rebbe MaHaRash dealt with the governments to take care of Gzeiris or other, to nullify decrees negative upon the Jewish people. And therefore he needed to act in such a way of Rachvas. Another story that the Rebbe every time would say and would choke up was when one time the Frierdiker Rebbe traveled to Eretz Yisrael when he wasn't able to travel anymore to the Mekomis HaKadoshim of the Kibbutz Aves of the Rebbeim in Russia. So he went to Eretz Yisrael, and one of the Chassidim who entered the Frierdiker Rebbe on Yechidus while he was in Eretz Yisrael fainted right when he walked in. When they took him out and he got back to himself, he was asked, why did you faint? What happened? So he said that cluster ponov of the Rebbe, of the Frierdiker Rebbe was just like the Rebbe MaHaRash. He was Alter Chassid. He saw the Rebbe MaHaRash as well, and he said it was the similarities of the face was so similar, and therefore he couldn't contain himself. And every time the Rebbe said these two stories throughout all the years, the Rebbe would choke up and not be able to continue further. The reason, again, I don't know the reason, but just bringing out this, I don't know what the right word even it is, of sensitivity or connection of the Rebbe with the Rebbe MaHaRash, this concept of having the inyan of L'chatchila Ariber. Another interesting story, not so well famous, the Rebbe mentioned that the Rebbe MaHaRash was one time traveling with his nephew Yeshaya Berlin, and on his way coming back to Lubavitch, he had to pass a few der Falach, a few little hamlets or little villages, and over there the custom was for Adam Chashav, an important person, they'll bring out chleb and salt, bread and water, and salt. And when Rebbe MaHaRash came by, the whole town people came out and they all bowed down on their knees and they gave the salt and the bread to the Rebbe MaHaRash out of great respect. When the Rebbe MaHaRash and his nephew Yeshaya Berlin came to Lubavitch, Yeshaya Berlin couldn't hold himself, and he told everybody about this amazing thing that occurred. He came back to Rebbe MaHaRash saying, wow, look what happened. The Rebbe MaHaRash answered saying, Petach, avem is gesagt geworden, pachtechem u'merachem yia kol haaretz. On who is it said, the verse, that your fear will be upon all the nations. Another interesting story, we find it with the Rebbe MaHaRash, where we find the living of the Rebbe MaHaRash in a way of the Chatchila Ariber of Rachvus, which wasn't like all the other Rebbeim, was a story that the Rebbe repeated from his grandfather. Rebbe's grandfather was a Yoshiv, someone who came to learn after he got married. It was before a concept of koilel, to sit and learn and live by the Rebbe MaHaRash. When he came back to his town where he lived, he would repeat things that he saw, and he mentioned one of the things that the Rebbe MaHaRash had. Everything that he did was in the way of rachvus, of wealth. The shmektabik, the snuff box that he used was made out of gold. The fork and silver, the forks and the spoons were also made out of gold, and so on and so forth. When they asked the Rebbe Zayda, how could you do such a thing? There's aniyim, there's poor people. So he answered, Petach, who do you think gold was created? similar to like the Medrash says that the Leinivra Zahav al Bishul Beis Hamikdash. The only reason gold was created was only for the Beis Hamikdash. Once it was based for the Beis Hamikdash, then everybody can have Hana of it as well. This was an answer to the people who were mocking, understanding why the Rebbe MaHaRash lived in such a great wealth. There's another interesting Shazar was the president of Eretz Yisrael. He came from Chassidim. His name was Shneur Zalman Rubashov. He used to bring presents when he used to come visit the Rebbe. One of the things he brought for the Rebbe, or he sent, was a graphologist by the name of Ruth Zucker, who analyzed the Rebbeim. The other ones are printed, but for the Rebbe MaHaRash, for some reason, wasn't printed of her findings. And the letter that Rebbe responded to Shazar about this lady's findings based on the handwriting analysis of the Rebbe MaHaRash, which the Rebbe encouraged. She writes there how the Rebbe MaHaRash was from youth was not well, and he was very fond with and successful in very small details, and he had a great mind, amongst many other things that this lady wrote. The Rebbe writes back to Shazar saying how amazing it is that also that's how we have it also in the family, meaning to say that the Rebbe MaHaRash was not well from young. And we also know that because of this, the Rebbe MaHaRash actually was advised and to use his hands as a part of a refuah for his healing. We know there was things that the Rebbe MaHaRash made. He made a few Megillas. He wrote Megillas. He also wrote other things as well. He also made a wooden chandelier and a wooden table. The Rebbe, when he went to visit his mother, to pick up his mother in 1947 in France, to arrange the papers that she built to come to America, the Rebbe at that time also picked up from a relative a table that Rebbe MaHaRash made, and the Rebbe was able to put it down and bring it to America, and it was laying in the Rebbe's room, a round table. Those you can see the pictures, and it was there all the years. It was something that the Rebbe didn't let be used for other things, to place things on it, and that was something that was stayed by the Rebbe for all the years. Another last thought regarding the Rebbe MaHaRash, as we are now entering the month of Iyar, and Iyar is connected, besides Bais Iyar, there's also Lag BaOmer Chai Iyar, and the Rebbe made a connection between the Rebbe MaHaRash and Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, which they're both in their days are in the month of Iyar. The Rebbe mentioned that the Tiferes Shebetiferes of the day of the Rebbe MaHaRash, Sfira, if you go the other way around, backwards, from Malchus Shebe Malchus, back towards Chesed Shebe Chesed, you'll reach the days of Tiferes Shebe Tiferes will be on the days of Hoid Shebe Hoid, which that's the day of Lag BaOmer. So we find the connection between the Shimon Bar Yochai and the day of Bais Iyar. An interesting phenomena that occurred in Tafshin Nun Aleph 1991, the Rebbe asked to be made a special coin that should be minted with Lag BaOmer written on it, and the days in the concept of Hini Matev Manoim Shavas Achem Gam Yachad. But on the front cover of it says Bais Iyar. The Rebbe gave it to everybody, and the Rebbe wrote on top. Should be written on top. Should be Ich Zog as Lechatchila Ariber. That was the motto that many times when the Rebbe would speak of the Rebbe MaHaRash or asked to sing the Niggin, the Rebbe didn't say by his name, but the Rebbe just said right away Lechatchila Ariber. His whole life was in a way of Ariber, different, as the world would say, the Rash would say, the Welt sagt, dass man kann nicht runter, geht man Ariber. If you can't go below, then you go above. And ich sag, the Rash would say, and I say, to go originally from above. Recently, I saw a letter that the Rebbe wrote to the Polish Chassidim who ended up in Montreal. They had the hardships with their opening up their schools there, and they used to come to consult with the Rebbe on their issues. And one of the duchs that they wrote to the Rebbe, the Rebbe responds to them on Tezvav Elul Tavshin Yud Aleph. The Rebbe tells them that he got the report of the meetings that they had, and it seems like they didn't get the point, which the Rebbe mentioned them many times, that they should live in a way, in a practical way of L'chatchila Ariber. And the Rebbe explains what does that mean. That the Rebbe MaHaRash would say that I say L'chatchila Ariber, and they're not living in that according to that motto, which they have explained that they're living and collecting money in a way of tzimtzum. What does that mean? That they're dividing the money based on for the school based on the money that they have in their account. But they have to do it the other way around. They have to first see how much money is needed for their institution, and then go for it. And then with that, based on that amount that they need to have, that's what they have to originally go, is to be able to spend based on what is needed, not to spend based on what they have. And therefore, they should collect originally in a way of the Chatchila Ariber plan, to be able to have enough money, to be able to live in a way not of tzimtzum, of restriction, but in a way of harchava, in a way of great wealth. The Rebbe will just finish with what this last point would mention the month of Iyar, which we're now in a time which needs great health. May it be really that it should be Ani, like the Rosh Tevis of Iyar is Aleph Yud Yud Reish, Ani Hashem Reifech, I am Hashem, your healer. May we have in the way of the Reb Shimon Bar Yochai and of the Rebbe MaHaRash, which they both lived in a way of the Baal Shem Skoif, like the Rebbe MaHaRash was many times referred to, that he lived in a way of Baal Shem Skoif, which means miracles above nature. And the same thing also in the way, the concept of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, which we say, Kedai Lismei Chalav B'Shas Adchak, may it be, speaking in our times, that we have no more tsar, only positive things to report with the coming of Mashiach, may it be speedily in our times.